Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour Fired Up on a Wednesday. A beautiful Wednesday, nonetheless. We got it going for you. We got three topics today. I sort of hinted at one of them on Monday's show, which is going to be our first topic of today. We got a great show planned for you today. As I said, my name is Nathan Harvey. I will be your host of today's episode of the Harvey Hour Fired Up. I think we should get right into it because we got a lot to talk about here, so let's jump right into it. So, Mike Sando of The Athletic made his tier list. He put a bunch of quarterbacks into different tiers, and I want to talk about at least tier 1 and tier 2 of today's show, so let's bring that up right now. So I'm going to break down my, what I think about this list, any disagreements that I have, maybe, how much I like it. Because actually, I do like this list. This tier list is pretty good. I would make maybe one change, and I'll talk about that when I get to it. But I do want to start by breaking this down. So obviously, the number one player in this tier list is Patrick Mahomes. I think that is an undisputed opinion now. Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. And I think the next guy closest to him is that number 2 spot in Joe Burrow. And then I do think there is a gap between Joe Burrow and the rest of the quarterbacks, number 3 being Josh Allen. I'm perfectly fine with that. Josh Allen has shown success, and in the regular season, I mean, in large part, he is that Bills offense. I don't think a lot of people would disagree with that. Number 4 is where I get to my first disagreement. Aaron Rodgers at number 4. I'm not entirely sure we could put him in tier 1, at least because of last season. If we're doing it yearly, not over a career, if we're doing it year by year by year, Aaron Rodgers in tier 1, he did not look like a tier 1 quarterback. And I think what separates tier 1 from tier 2 is how much do you really, when it comes down to it, how much do you trust your quarterback? I mean, for at least the 4 of them outside of Aaron Rodgers, based on last season, I would trust them 100%. Tier 2 is where you get in, they were great last year, and then you get to a singular, but I'm not too sure about this, that, or the other thing. Aaron Rodgers, I think, would be there. Aaron Rodgers is still a great thrower, but he didn't look that great last year. But because of his security blanket, he had to trust new receivers, and it looked pretty bad. He's also an aging quarterback, so maybe there's even more than one but. And then Justin Herbert at number 5, I'm fine with. He has like the most 300-yard passing season since entering the league. He's been absolutely tremendous since he got into the NFL. His first matchup was against Patrick Mahomes, and he actually came and delivered, probably with flying colors as well. Let's get into tier 2 here. So the first one is Jalen Hurts. I'm perfectly fine with this. Jalen Hurts being a tier 2, believe me, last year, he's probably a top 5 quarterback. You could argue, maybe push him into the top 3. It'd probably be Mahomes, Burrow, and then Hurts if you want to go that route. But here's the big but now. He's only done it for 1 year. Now, he's grown sort of on that Josh Allen curve since he got a number 1 receiver, going from looking terrible to being untrusted to now just went to a Super Bowl. Now, if it continues on that trend next year, I guarantee you he'll be in tier 1. Lamar Jackson. A tremendous athlete, arguably the best quarterback, at least athletic-wise, in the NFL. But in 2 straight seasons, he's played 1 game in December and January. That can't cut it. Injuries and health concerns are probably a reason why these contract negotiations for Lamar Jackson got stretched out way beyond what they needed to. So now Lamar Jackson, and besides, he got more weapons now. Everyone's like, yo, get him some weapons. They got him more weapons. It's not about an offensive line issue. The Ravens, since Lamar has gotten into the league, has averaged the 3rd best offensive line in the NFL. They're a tremendous run team, which is what Greg Roman was trying to do with that team, play to Lamar's strength, which was running the football, quarterback draws, design quarterback runs. And now we're coming in with Todd Monken. He's going to come in here, design an offense that probably throws a lot more. Lamar Jackson's confident. He's got OBJ. He's got Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers popping off in training camp thus far. So I'm hearing a lot of good things out of Baltimore. We should see Lamar Jackson maybe make that jump depending on how next season turns out. Number 8, Trevor Lawrence. I have no problem with this because guess what? We throw away his rookie year. That's what we do. We say, okay, Urban Meyer, that was a horrible situation, a complete mess, total dysfunction. And now we get into some competency. A Super Bowl winning head coach in Doug Peterson. He brings competency. You bring in Christian Kirk. You get Travis Etienne. And now you have Calvin Ridley. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, we throw away his rookie year. Last year, you could say it was his first true year in the NFL, and he's shown. I mean, he came back against Justin Herbert in the playoffs and almost could have he had 2 opportunities to beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoff game. So there was an opportunity for Trevor Lawrence to at least reach the AFC Championship, if not the Super Bowl. But it turns out, you know what? Trevor Lawrence is not quite there yet, just like Herbert is very close to beating Mahomes, but he's not quite there yet. Trevor Lawrence, I believe, is on that same scale, but he's a young quarterback. We'll have to see him develop. We'll have to see if he can keep it up. The prince who was promised, let's see if he can continue it. Number 9, Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott in the NFL is like a slightly more athletic with a slightly better arm version of Kirk Cousins. He's about a B, and on a really, really great day, he's a B-plus quarterback. But we can't trust him. We saw it last year in the playoffs. Brock Purdy and that 49ers team gave him so many opportunities to take the lead. It was a low-scoring game, which is good for Dak Prescott. Brock Purdy was not playing well. The Cowboys' defense was shutting that offense down. And all Dak needed to do was play smart. And he literally threw the game away. So Dak Prescott, he said he's going to tone down the turnovers. We'll have to wait and see, because guess what? He played, 14, 13 games? And I think he played 12 games and had 15 interceptions, the most in the league. You can't do that next year. Now, you have Brandon Cooks, should be a great wide receiver to CeeDee Lamb. I'm excited to see how the Cowboys run. You don't have Zeke. You do have Tony Pollard on a franchise tag. So, you know what? Tony Pollard last year was the better running back. You have to deal with Zach Martin, your guard issue right now. He's the number 1 offensive lineman in Madden at a 99 overall. And now he's not even on your team right now. He's holding out for contract issues, which is an entirely different thing. Zach Martin has been paid as one of the top guards in the league, and now when the market shifts, he's now not considered a top guard, at least payment-wise, and he's getting a little upset about it, but he has been paid, more than enough. But, that's still an issue for the Cowboys and an aging offensive line. I think it's important to try to get him back and sort out that issue, but we'll have to wait and see. Number 10, Matt Stafford. Now, he just won a Super Bowl 2 years ago. He has what was the number 1 wide receiver 2 years ago. Broke Calvin Ridley's record, nearly broke it. Or not Calvin Ridley, Calvin Johnson's record a couple years ago. And now, last year, dealing with injuries, dealing with an injured offensive line. All of a sudden now they have what? An over-under win share of 5? Are you kidding me? Now, the big if with Matt Stafford is he's dealing with that I believe it's an elbow injury that's going to be a lingering thing. It'll be a tolerance thing. That could be a problem. That could be why the Rams maybe try to get off of him in this offseason and why they asked him to restructure his contract. This could be a big thing where reportedly the Rams and the 49ers are both interested in Kirk Cousins, and that would mean you have to get off of Matt Stafford, obviously. Now, you have Stetson Bennett, who I saw a video. He's dropping a dime to Cooper Kupp before Cooper Kupp got hurt. But, Matt Stafford dealing with health injuries, health concerns and injuries, that's a serious thing. Serious thing for a quarterback at his age. Matt Stafford, though, when he's healthy, he could play pretty well. Deshaun Watson. Now, what version of Deshaun Watson are we getting? Why is he in Tier 2? Now, the Browns, I believe, have an over-under win total of 9.5, which I think is absolutely absurd. And Sports Illustrated actually put them, I believe, as the 10th most likely team to win a Super Bowl, which I'm like, I might be missing something. I'm not too sure. But Deshaun Watson is there at number 11 in the Tier 2 quarterbacks, and I think the only but would be what version of Deshaun Watson are we getting? Before, Deshaun Watson was in limbo and then ultimately, fined. And then he went on that entire fiasco of the court cases and the allegations and him getting picked up by the Browns for that massive deal. I think we got to realize what version of Deshaun Watson are we getting, because the version of Deshaun Watson we saw last year wasn't all that great. It looked like he had a lot of rust on him. Did not look like the guy we saw back in Houston, where last year in Houston, while he did go 4-12, he dropped 4,800 yards, I think on 70% completion percentage, which is absolutely absurd. Now, if we get that Deshaun Watson, I think you could argue to put him in Tier 1. Because guess what? All the rust, all the worry would be gone, because guess what? He's playing like a phenomenal quarterback. Now, I don't think that's the version of Deshaun Watson that we're going to get, but is the potential still there? Yeah, the potential's still there. He's still a young quarterback. He's still very talented. We just got to see if that rust will be taken off of him. And then finally, Kirk Cousins. Now, the big but of Kirk Cousins is he is a incredibly efficient quarterback within his system. The only but, the only if is, what time are his games being played? I'm telling you right now, the Vikings are not going to go 11-0 in one-score games, and they're not going to have a crazy win like against the Bills and have the largest comeback in NFL history against the Colts again. You're not going to see that again. And Kirk Cousins, we saw in every single game outside of like 1 p.m., he became an entirely different quarterback. And when the lights are shining the brightest, he came up the smallest. So we had to see what version of Kirk Cousins we're getting there. But, I think this list is pretty good, actually. I would move Aaron Rodgers down, and I could argue because of the trend we're seeing, you could put Jalen Hurts at number 5 and move Justin Herbert up to 4 if that's a true, number 1 is the best, or is it just one tier system like I do for my Nate's Notches, at least for teams. So I'm not entirely sure. That's the only major change I would make, is to knock Aaron Rodgers down to tier 2, because we are doing it on a yearly basis, and last year Aaron Rodgers was not all that great. Hell, he wasn't even all that good. Jalen Hurts, at least, we're seeing a trend now since Jalen Hurts got a number 1 wide receiver that he's a significantly better quarterback, and he's on that same trend that we saw Josh Allen take as soon as he got Stephon Diggs. We have to remember, the first couple years of Josh Allen's career, he was throwing up barely 60% completion percentage, and we saw that wacky playoff game where he tried to lateral it like 18 yards behind him, and that was an entire thing. It was an entire mess. So I would knock Jalen Hurts up 1, or I'd bring Jalen Hurts up 1 into tier 1, knock Aaron Rodgers down to maybe the top of tier 2, because I still think behind a good offensive line and behind a great wide receiver, we could see near MVP Aaron Rodgers again. But I do not think Aaron Rodgers, truthfully, is not going to get another MVP no matter what team he's on. So that's just my opinion. But I do like Mike Sando's list. I do think it's a good list. Like I said, the only change I would make is that Aaron Rodgers to Jalen Hurts move. Let's get into our next topic. So, I saw this report last night, and it absolutely blew my mind. How? According to Pro Football Network, the Bears quarterback, Justin Fields, is now gathering up a bunch of bets to become the MVP of the league next season. Sportsbooks are reporting that now Justin Fields is going to be a heavy MVP favorite, receiving more bets to win MVP this year than Mahomes, Herbert, and Josh Allen combined. I'm sorry. Am I missing something here? We're talking about a guy whose career record is 5-20, and I'm looking right here. Doesn't even have a career completion percentage of 60%, has 4,000 passing yards in 2 seasons, and nearly has a 1-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. Now, did he look good running the football last year? Yeah. But we have to realize this team right now, as it is currently ranked, has the 31st defense, so their defense is still a problem. Now, they do have some good players on the defense, like Eddie Jackson. They picked up Tremaine Edmonds. They have a couple good players on defense, and their offensive line is still abysmal. Now, they got Darnell Wright, who's probably their best offensive lineman. I'm hearing great things. I'm seeing great things out of training camp. But in reality, 80% of their offensive line is either brand new or they changed positions. The only one that stayed the same is Braxton Jones, who's going to this year as a year 2 player. He was a rookie last year. So this offensive line, it was terrible last year. It may still be a work in development. And we saw Justin Fields, he barely had time to throw. That's why he got over 1,000 rushing yards, because he couldn't stay in the pocket. So my bet would be this is nothing. This is people trying to cash in on whatever Justin Fields' odds are. I don't have them in front of me. I believe I talked about them before. But Justin Fields, I guarantee you, is probably like plus 2,000. So under those odds, yeah, maybe. But if we're being serious here, I'm telling you right now, there is a 0% chance that Justin Fields will win NFL MVP next year, because there are too many good quarterbacks who are super valuable to their team. And I understand Justin Fields is probably the most valuable piece, at least on the offensive side, of the Bears. However, Jalen Hurts is more valuable on the Eagles. Dak Prescott, I would say, is more valuable on the Cowboys. Josh Allen, Tua, Aaron Rodgers, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Trevor Lawrence. Should I keep going? Pat Mahomes, Herbert, or even Russell Wilson. If we see Russell Wilson have another spark, I don't believe it, but if we see another spark, like, there's a bunch of quarterbacks that are more valuable to their team that could shine much brighter than Justin Fields. Is Justin Fields fascinating to watch? Is it very intriguing to see him, how he calculates his runs and how he plays? Yeah, it's amazing. It's a walking highlight reel. I mean, this is what we saw Lamar Jackson do early in his career. Now it's not to the same level as Lamar Jackson, because Lamar Jackson is an absolute freak on the football field. But Justin Fields has that running ability that Lamar Jackson has. Now the throwing ability we'll need to see. But in order for Justin Fields to make a legitimate MVP push, we're going to need to see probably 800 yards at the minimum, with about 3,000 to 3,500 passing yards. And we also need to tone it down on turnovers. That was the big knock on Brady in 2021. Brady had better better stats, like passing yards, completion percentage, all that, than Aaron Rodgers. Except Aaron Rodgers went 42-7 or something like that, some absurd number like that. Barely had any interceptions. But Tom Brady had more touchdowns and more passing yards or whatever. And because, the touchdown to interception ratio was so low for Rodgers, that's probably why he got a little bit of a nudge over Brady. Now, I think Brady should have won that year, but, it's just my opinion. So that's what we're looking at. And in order for, Justin Fields to shine, we're going to need to see how well this team will do. This is their schedule. So the first 4 games, I think, are pretty difficult. Because you're going up against the Packers, whose defense should still be good. We don't know what Jordan Love's going to look like, so I'm not entirely saying, the offense is going to take over. However, Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers still own the Bears. Now, will that continue outside of Rodgers' tenure there? Will just the Packers now own the Bears? I'm not too sure. The Bucs, their defense is still okay, I'm going to assume. They're getting Shaq Barrett back from his injury. So I'm not sure what this Bucs team is going to look like. We have Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask at quarterback. We'll talk about that in the next topic here. You go up against the Chiefs. The Chiefs and the Broncos should beat you. So you go, at the very best, you're going to go 2-2. And then, the Vikings are going to be interesting. The Raiders, I don't know what they're going to look like. They should look good. The Chargers, the Saints. What does Bryce Young look like? The Lions had the most high-flying offense through half the season last year. I mean, realistically, I'd give them 6 wins. 6 wins, maybe 7. But I'm not seeing MVP-type caliber numbers here. Because guess what? In order to be an MVP, generally, it's not only about your success, it's also about your team's success. Will you make the playoffs? Will you be, a tremendous player compared to the rest of the quarterbacks in the NFL? Now, I don't think that's going to happen, but will it be exciting to watch Justin Fields run up and down the field, score great touchdowns, juke people on the field? Yeah, it will be very, very fascinating to watch. But if we're talking about, the Bears' success, they still have a pretty bad defense. Their offensive line is a massive question mark. Chase Claypool, I thought would be really, really good on the Bears, was a disappointment last year. They did get DJ Moore, which should help him a lot in the passing game. And Khalil Herbert made a big jump from his first season to last year running the football. Darnell Mooney as a wide receiver, too, is a pretty good option. Cole Kmet, they're going to think about signing into a big extension, or they already signed into a big extension. I mean, I campaigned for the Patriots to take him a couple years ago. I thought that would have been a great opportunity to pick up a really good tight end after drafting, Ryan Izzo and David Asiasi or whatever the hell his name is. That was a bad choice by the Patriots to pick up those tight ends when you could have gotten someone like Cole Kmet in the first round, and I actually thought about that. And I actually believe in my mock draft, or it might have been the 2020 mock draft, but I actually, on my mock draft, said that they should pick him up, and they didn't, which is a disappointment on my part. But Justin Fields is lucky. Justin Fields is very lucky. He's incredibly athletic. He puts in the work, and his team is now buying into him. That's the big thing. Jalen Hurts, in his couple of years, I mean, we saw Doug Pearson bench him for Nate Sudfeld. I don't know why. They could have made the playoffs. You put him in or you take him out for Nate Sudfeld, and then they end up losing that game to, I believe, the Commanders. That's a problem there. And then there were huge question marks about Hurts. Will he be the franchise quarterback? What will they do? I don't think Justin Fields is necessarily on the hot seat like I saw a bunch of times throughout this offseason. Could the Bears be looking at a new quarterback next year? Would they be drafting a new quarterback? No, I think that's unfair to say that a bad organization like the Bears, who haven't had a 4,000-yard passer in their entire franchise's history, and all of a sudden Justin Fields is probably the most exciting quarterback you've had in a very, very long time. And all of a sudden, after 3 seasons, after this season, which will be 3 seasons, that you should get off of him. No, I think that's unfair. Your team is bad. You don't have exactly top-tier talent. DJ Moore is a pretty good wide receiver. However, he did have one of his worst years last year, but I'm not going to entirely blame him. He had Baker Mayfield, P.J. Walker, and Sam Darnold. That's not entirely on him, but he did have 3 straight seasons before that of 1,100 or more yards. Darnell Mooney's a good wide receiver, too. Your tight end's interesting. Your offensive line, there's a lot of question marks there, and your defense also, there's a lot of question marks there. So I don't know what to do with this Bears team. I do not think, going down the line right now, they are not better than Minnesota. They are not better than Detroit. And I think the closest team they have to beat is the Green Bay Packers, which I'm not sure entirely how Jordan Love's going to play. I don't know how great that team will be. But I do know that what Aaron Rodgers did last year, I believe Jordan Love can replicate that. So I think they can get to about 7-10, 8-9, and I think that's where the Bears need to be. But I really think 3-14, a total last year, and then Justin Fields in his entire career has a record of 5-20. We're going to need to see a much, much better Justin Fields. And I just think, truthfully, with the talent that the Bears have, I can't see him getting to like 3,500 yards and minimize on turnovers. I think he may have about 2,800 yards passing and maybe 1,000 rushing yards. But because guess what? His offensive line is still bad. Now, could the rookies and the young players and the offensive line swaps, could they work out amazing? And all of a sudden, we see a great offensive line of the Bears? Is that realistic? Not really. Could it happen shockingly? Yeah, it could. But realistically, that's not what we're looking at here. So Justin Fields as a MVP favorite, a betting favorite, more votes, more bets than Mahomes, Herbert, and Allen combined. I don't know what bettors are doing out here. But hey, your money, you get to spend it however you damn well like it. Let's get into our final topic of today's Harvey Hour, Fired Up. So, brand new Bucs offensive coordinator Dave Canales recently said in a press conference that the QB competition has tightened over the past couple training camp days. That's not a good sign for Baker Mayfield. Now, I said when the Panthers released Baker Mayfield, I did not expect him to get another starting job in the NFL. I was wrong, and the first day I uploaded that video, that same day, he had that really, really impressive comeback against the Raiders. And, of course, I had to eat my words. But now, when we had some time to think about it, the season's over. He's now on the Bucs, his third team in 3 years? Now we can take a look at it and say, fourth team in 3 years. What's going on with Baker Mayfield? Former first overall pick in the NFL draft, and now you may lose your job to a guy that hasn't really played much in the NFL. I believe he's a second-round draft pick, and you're going to potentially lose your job. So last year, there's a reason why I said I didn't expect Baker Mayfield to get another starting job, and this is why. So out of 33 qualified quarterbacks, this was Baker Mayfield last season. Passing yards, 2,163. That's 29th in the league. He only had 10 touchdowns. He had more batted balls than touchdowns. That's 31st in the league, by the way. Completion percentage, 60% on the dot. That was ranked 32nd out of 33. On-target percentage, he's incredibly inaccurate. 30th in the league. And QBR, ESPN's ranking of 0 to 100, not passer rating, QBR, he was dead last in the NFL. So Baker Mayfield, what we saw last year, was abysmal. And he said in his press conference with the Bucs how he got hurt with the Browns, and that's why they got rid of him. And then last year with the Panthers, it is what it is. Okay, well, let's talk about that injury you're talking about. That torn labrum. Does anyone remember how Baker Mayfield got it? This high-strung guy, progressive commercials, he always wants to be in the spotlight. He has that frat boy type of personality. Do we remember how he got that torn labrum? He threw an interception in the Houston Texans game in week 2 and decided to try to tackle someone with his shoulder. That's how he got that injury that basically killed any chance of him returning as the Cleveland Browns quarterback. And then the Cleveland Browns decided to pursue Deshaun Watson. Baker Mayfield got upset. Then went to the Panthers, and we found out how that looked. The Panthers, and by the way, it is what it is. By the way, this is not entirely Baker Mayfield hate. This is Baker Mayfield truth. I was very excited to watch Baker Mayfield last year with the Panthers. I thought it'd be a resurgence of his career. And by the way, it is what it is. that was your shot to prove if the Panthers weren't necessarily going to retain you to maybe your next team that you were on, if the Panthers decided to get off of you, that you could still be a starter in the NFL. And you played horribly. You had like the most batted balls in the NFL until like week 14. And I'm looking at it right now. You got taken out after like week 7. So it's not like you were out there, slinging the ball most of the season. No, you didn't even make it to half the year. And you had more batted balls than probably double your starts on the Panthers. Like, that's bad. That's really, really bad. So I was extremely excited to watch Baker Mayfield play. The first game was actually a BS game. Bad calls all around late in that game. It was originally intentional grounding against Brissett. They decided to pick up the flag. And then before that, there was a roughing the passer that wasn't roughing the passer. It was a whole thing. The Browns probably shouldn't have won that game, but nevertheless, they still won on an amazing kick by Cade York. And Baker Mayfield, at that point, downward spiral. And I was disappointed. But then I saw the truth that Baker Mayfield last year was actually terrible. And when we saw the stats, and I'll bring them up one more time. I mean, those stats are terrible. I just went on Justin Fields about how he needs 3,500 yards and like 800 rushing yards to be considered for the MVP. Baker Mayfield is nowhere near that. He had 2,160 passing yards for a first overall pick. I mean, like I'd feel more comfortable with Sam Darnold as my quarterback if that was the other option. Now, if Kyle Trask going out here slinging the ball and pressing, OC Dave Canales or what's his name, Bowles, the head coach, Todd Bowles, then if I was Baker Mayfield and I lost my job, I'd retire. That's what I would do. If I lost my job again to a quarterback that probably shouldn't be better than me, I mean, I already lost my job to P.J. Walker, an XFL quarterback, and Sam Darnold, who is largely considered a bust. I mean, we saw what he looked like with the Jets. Largely a bust. And now I'm going in with a new system, a new team, and I don't even get the starting job after being the first overall pick and winning a playoff game. And I played with like the best offensive line, a great defense, and very good weapons, and tremendous running backs. And then I move off of that team, go to the Panthers, need to prove myself, say it is what it is in the Bucs press conference. I played horribly, and now I'm on with the Rams. Showed a little bit of showed a spark, but then wasn't all that great. Then come in the Bucs and don't even get a starting job because I lose it to Kyle Trask. If I was Baker Mayfield at that point, I'd retire because that's embarrassing. I think Baker Mayfield is too high-strung, sort of like the Cam Newton thing, where he has too big of a personality to just sit on the bench. Because we'll probably hear, Baker Mayfield's upset about being on the bench. He's disgruntled in the locker room. He's not practicing as hard as he should. So, if I was Baker Mayfield, and I lost my job to Kyle Trask, and he believes he's still a starter in the NFL, I'd retire. Because I guarantee you, if you lose your job to Kyle Trask, there is no team, 0 teams, that will make you their starting quarterback. Not the Raiders, not the Falcons. The Falcons just said they have a bunch of faith in Desmond Ridder. Not the Commanders, not Pittsburgh, not Cleveland, not the Saints. Nobody. Not even the Bucs won't even make you their starter. The Cardinals won't make you their starter. There is literally no team in the NFL that would make you their starting quarterback if you were available to them and they had a choice. So, Baker Mayfield, this is probably your last shot. And if you do get the starting job, because I think it should be your job to lose, and it looks like you're losing it currently. I mean, we all have to see better from you. We all have to see more from you. And maybe if you do get the starting job and play well, the Bucs. I mean, I think the Bucs should start losing games, try to get Caleb Williams. Because right now, probably the Bucs are fighting with Arizona and maybe the Raiders to go out and get Caleb Williams or Drake May. So that's what the Bucs should not be sticking with Baker Mayfield. They should be losing games. So hell, I would just say Kyle Trask is better than you. Throw him out there. They'll win probably 3, 4, maybe 5 games if you're really pushing it. And then it is what it is. Bucs probably get the first or the second pick. You could either get You could draft Drake May at second. Let's say they do get the second overall pick. You could either draft Drake May, because I think if the Cardinals are the first overall pick, they'll probably get Caleb Williams, or you can get Marvin Harrison. So those are two options for the Bucs if they want to go that route. But like I said, if Baker Mayfield loses his job to Kyle Trask, it's over. Maybe he won't necessarily retire, but I don't know if a team will pick him up. The Bucs keep him as their backup in case Kyle Trask is legitimately terrible throughout the season, or they'll just keep him as the backup and then ride out Baker Mayfield's wave, however much he has left as a backup. They could release him, but I do not think he'll be picked up by another team. I think that wraps it up for today's episode of the Harvey Hour Fire Up. Thank you all for joining me today. Pretty good episode. We got a Friday show. I'm going to give a little teaser as I do on my Wednesday shows of the Harvey Hour Fired Up. Giannis Antetokounmpo is evaluating his future with the Bucs before he signs a potential extension with Milwaukee. We're going to talk about that and the realistic opportunity that Giannis could be out of Milwaukee, just like one legend, Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, got his way